What's the worst human invention ever made? Landmines. Cheap and easy to make, but they remain active and people forget where they put them. There is also a thing called mine migration. The weather moves them around over time. There is a phenomenal and incredibly tense movie called Kajaki about a group of British soldiers who get stuck in a minefield that was swept down a riverbed. Apparently Germany has some innovative ones. They also have a time fuse, so the minefield explodes itself after a set amount of time. Sir, I programmed the landmines for 60 years as ordered. 60 days, you fool. Nah, max time is something like 3 days, if I recall correctly. What do you mean? I know I put it in this area where I'm stepping. He was just mining his own PC. Ah, you guys are so dumb. Those idiots. They went the wrong way. Seriously, if they just stepped up. Landmines aren't that common. Haven't seen one my entire life. Now this is getting real. Mustard gas is pretty nasty stuff. It's also interesting that Fritz Haber, the inventor of mustard gas, also invented the Haber-Bosch process, which takes nitrogen from the air and turns it into fertilizer, which would be used to feed billions, and it is estimated that half the protein in your body is a result of this process. So in essence he killed millions and saved billions. Haber didn't invent mustard gas. Mustard gas was synthesized in the 19th century, possibly as early as 1822. Haber proposed using heavier-than-air chlorine gas in trench warfare and pioneered certain industrial processes for making it. His innovations were later used to develop Zyklon B as well. The irony was that Haber was born Jewish and converted to Christianity. Casino slot machines that allow you to insert your credit debit cards. That exists. Holy fuck. That should actually be illegal. I work in casinos and used to service the ATMs. Having a debit card slot in the machines is not smart for the casino. The atoms and other areas of the casino are referred to as cool-off areas. When you lose enough money you need to mentally refresh and get up and do something before you sit back down and lose more. You can shear a sheep many times but skin it just once. If people lose too much in one sitting they are way more likely to completely swear off of casinos or take too long a break for the casino's liking. I feel like slot machines in general should be. It's weird that some bad-for-you things are allowed and others are illegal based on who profits. TBH, gambling legally is silly. I trust a good game of dice on the curb way more than a giant smoky room with not a single clock on the wall and being breathed down your neck on by big burly dudes watching you 24/7. Gambling culture in general sucks because it's not a culture defined by the people doing it, but the folks controlling it. The weirdest thing is how you get kicked if they suspect you are playing blackjack using an objectively correct strategy. It's a rare case where the odds are stacked in a way that the game is actually winnable if you know what you are doing, but they only let you play if you play like a dummy and lose money. Card counting is nearly impossible nowadays after several such incidents. Now most tables will play with 8 decks of cards. Worse than that, some casinos installed continuous shuffle machines at the blackjack tables. That was when I stopped playing blackjack. Remembering the last time a thread like this came up, the correct answer is along the lines of leaded fuel. And CFCs. By the same guy apparently. Yep, Thomas Midgley Jr. contributed to the death of an estimated 200 million people due to his inventions. Including himself. If I remember correctly, while paralyzed with polio, he rigged up a complicated system of wires and pulleys to help move himself around and ended up strangling himself in his own contraption. Mystery biscuits. Ads with fake X. I had to watch a full screen ad to use a free app on my phone. I couldn't find the X. Turns out, the X was located exactly where my camera lens is and therefore not visible. I didn't realize this was an advantage to having an older phone with a rectangular screen. And there it is. The faded X. The cross designed to tempt to vex. The trick to trap. The dupe to snare. I click the X. It isn't there. Agent Orange. Generations of families of people exposed to this are still struggling with the effects. My dad died of oral cancer. Most of his army buddies are dead from similar causes. What's that? It was an herbicide mixture used by the US during the Vietnam War that was pretty harmful to humans and still causes lingering problems today. Planned obsolescence. This is a problem with a multitude of other global widespread negative implications that we haven't even begun to fully experience. It's an issue that pisses me off more than any other. I'll go with styrofoam. It's single use, takes 500 years to biodegrade, leaches carcinogens, and is fucking everywhere. Given its use as a cheap but very effective insulating material for buildings and whatnot, it's got some saving graces. It's just that some idiot thought it'd be a good idea to use it for disposable packaging. It does turn out that mealworms can eat it though, and it is apparently nutritious for them. So that's being used in schemes for its disposal. Oh wow. Maybe mealworms will save the litter crisis. Extra bright blinding headlights. Basically any headlights on pickups 2020 or newer because they're so freaking tall now too. Makes close encounters of the third kind look lame in comparison. At this point, I'm waiting for them to get tall enough for the headlights to go above my car. Adjust your mirrors to reflect their lights right back at them when they are behind you. There's one particular guy, Thomas Midgili. He was working as an engineer, looking for an additive for petrol which would stop engine knocking, caused when the pistons misfire. There was many possibilities, but one was a novel and therefore patentable idea which made a fortune. Tetryethyl lead. He then went on to work in cooling and refrigeration to solve the problem of the gases being used, also being toxic and flammable. He invented early chlorofluorocarbons, marketed as Freon. Freon was later discovered to be highly damaging to the ozone layer. It took decades to uncover, and there was huge opposition to the findings. If they hadn't been banned and phased out, their use would have resulted in the end of life on Earth. Leaded petrol was responsible for mass lead poisoning, a noticeable rise in brain damage, and has been linked to the sharp rise in criminality and violence in the 1980s. Two of the worst inventions of all time, both attributed to one man. Probably the most dangerous and damaging man ever to have lived. Yes, and the most shocking fact about this guy is that his last invention actually killed him. Yes. A self-designed disability hoist, wasn't it? 3 inventions, 3 total disasters. Leaded gasoline and Freon at the time were great inventions. They did what they were set out to do. Just with horrible unintended consequences. Social media algorithms. Yes. And it can all be traced back to 2016 when it was changed from chronological to algorithm-based. That's when everything really started going to shit in the world. That one evil scientist made a robot that molests kids. I think it was solar-powered. RoboChomo? Made by Roy. That iron bull they used to burn people in. That was pretty bad. At least the inventor of it got burned in an iron bull. That's right, and it's called the Brazen Bull. Mobile game ads. Is anyone else a little concerned by all these ads on apps targeted to kids that are full of half-naked and I'm girls and whatnot? I haven't seen those, but the ones with a mother freezing to death with her child after being kicked out by the cheating father are pretty concerning. Pull the right pin and they won't die. Totally normal. Corporate lobbying. In the end, I think nuclear weapons will be at the top of this list. We're only surviving currently because everyone has agreed that they wouldn't prefer to doom mankind to a fiery radioactive death. Don't you think it's only a matter of time before someone irrational decides to take everyone down with them? Nukes were my first thought also. We've wired up our planet to explode several times over. It's inevitable that a few of these get fired and trigger a nuclear winter fallout by some dictator, hacker, terrorist organization, etc. Cigarettes. The cigarette rolling machine caused the tobacco boom of the early 20th century, which, in turn, caused the anti-smoking movement of the mid to late 20th century. Industrial rolling machines made pre-rolled cigarettes cheaper, making them a consumer product. Nicotine users didn't have to roll their own, pack a pipe, or deal with the mess of snuffer chaw. This made nicotine much more accessible to the masses. In World War I, Gen. Pershing regarded tobacco as an essential element of American military readiness. Soldiers needed cigarettes to fight. Why? Because nicotine addiction had become commonplace, and because nicotine is a stimulant that makes it easier to work harder. Cigarettes were issued in US military rations through the Vietnam War. But when soldiers returned from the wars, it turned out that smoking was not so good for their families. Elders developed cancer, children developed asthma, and nice girls didn't want to kiss boys who tasted like an ashtray. Wood ice cream scoopers from IKEA. What, you don't want tiny pieces of wood in your ice cream? In terms of utensils, I feel like the paper straw is way worse lol. Thanks for watching human. For more videos like this subscribe and hit that like button.